Excellent. Go ahead and get this reading started. I have my laptop out over here because I do take notes. Let's see. All right. So I'm a big note taker. I stopped watching TV and stuff like that years ago, so I started reading a lot. But as you know, intuitives and sensitives, we get a lot of downloads, and a lot of times at the time that I'm receiving the download, I'm not necessarily in a space or a time where I feel like getting on camera and doing the reading. So in those instances, I typically keep notes, but I'm just a note taker. Like, I stopped watching TV, and started, just living life differently. I became a minimalist, so a lot of things change with that. And you do become a reader, which is one of my favorite things, because that's what I wanted. That was the goal of doing that. But anyway, we're here to talk about this community and this group, about what they're going through, what they're going to be experiencing, if they'll be able to see it coming. And what I mean by that is that currently they're in a space where if people were going together with somebody, working together with somebody to spiritually attack you or to try to steal from you or whatever it is, or go against you, or, falsify information about you, whatever it is. But if people were going about things in that way, and that's what something they were doing and they were a part of, they are most assuredly going to have to deal with the consequences of those things, right? Now, what's funny is note taking is so funny to me, because yesterday I came upon a note in my on my laptop, and it was wild because it was from 2018, and the note was just saying, when you don't know when you don't know your function, you'll end up in dysfunction. And it's not how much you say about God that proves either. And I stopped right there. It says that proves. So I may have been saying it proves how much you love him, how much you're dedicated to him, something like that, probably. It says, I've made excuses, have regrets, issues, shames, and bondage. Now, this is back in 2018. My spiritual journey didn't start until, I want to say, maybe 2020. But I was very religious, okay? And I feel like there's a huge difference between being spiritual and religious. I think I started to become much more spiritual right around the end of 2019, which was when COVID hit. But anyway, the note from March 14th of 2018 says, I made excuses, I have regrets, issues, shame, and bondage. So even then I knew kind of like that there were things that I needed to, people, places, and things that I needed to let go of. It says, I'm coming out of my comfort and into my calling, and expecting a miracle. There's purpose for pain. And then it went to, I left a note of like 1 Corinthians 1:3, which when I went to the verse, I was like, this doesn't make sense. But then if you read verse 4, it does. So I was like, oh, another part of my note taking. I'd be moving so fast, and I have so many things that I'm trying to accomplish this lifetime that I tend to leave things like half, but I know myself well enough to know how to like look at the notes and understand what it is. But the reason that the collective has so much freedom from excuses, regrets, issues, bondage, shame, having, being kept in any type of like indecision or, disruptive lifestyle, is because they're at this point, which is the Bible verse that ended up there. And I was just kind of shocked. I was like, oh, wow, this is a Bible verse that I put down in 2018 that resonates right now today with what I'm doing. So, and for 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 4, it says, 3 and 4, it says, praise be to God and the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in trouble with the comfort that we received from God. And that's what people don't understand about us light beings and us, divine beings is what I like to call us, is that we're given all this stuff. And we don't know. Honestly, some of us may not even know. We are called to research things. We're called to look at stuff. We're called to explore stuff. Things that catch me off guard, other than that goat, are like the fact that this note is here, and then at the end of that it says Egypt. And I honestly had thought everything about Egypt was a myth. That's what I learned in school, So it wasn't until my spiritual awakening that I actually started to look at that stuff more in depth and actually explore. And I think that that's a huge part of people's awakening too. 444 on the clock is when you start to really let your mind expand and go beyond. And like, I don't even know how the word Egypt got in this note with these notes about God, and you know what I mean? So anyway, but it just is a further testament to me about on how God works with me and my downloads that I get and stuff like that. I have so many notes in so many different places on this reading specifically that it's not even funny. All right. One of the things they have to understand too is that, like, if they feel like they can send the negative energy to us and that it's going to be effective, if it's not reaching us anymore, where does it go? Like, where does it effectually live at that point? They are aware. It's just so you know, like, they know where they're at. Where they're at right now is this phase, and I don't know, maybe there's some collective that can confirm with me. Like, there was this phase maybe a few years back when I was, in my spiritual awakening. It was starting to realize what was happening, and it was just kind of like, at that point I was just stuck watching everything start to change in my life, and I felt very, defenseless. I felt very hopeless. I didn't know what to do because I didn't know why any of this was happening. But as I progressed and tried to search for the right things, of course, I started to understand, again, the reason why some of us go through things is so that we can be, like the scripture said, like, helpful to others when they experience something. Because what you learn in your spiritual awakening, you may learn something that helps you help other people that are experiencing cancer and having to live with that disease, though you may never have had cancer. It's just your depth of understanding of the fact that, like, there's no amount of money that can get you out of a spiritual crisis. It's just you. It's just you fighting that disease, right? If you have cancer, right? It's the same way. It's just you fighting that spiritually. No one can light a candle on your behalf and it actually do more than you lighting a candle on your own. So anyway, so that's also why the magic doesn't really work. But anyway, so what I'm seeing in the notes that I'm taking and the research that I did, there are going to be different mental disorders that hit these communities. There are going to be 10 really scary ones that come into these groups. What I heard was, like, the 10 will afflict. Okay, so when they were going around searching on who could they get involved in these groups, and the word around town when they were doing this was the higher up, the better. So the higher up the individual, either in the judicial system or in the police department or in this specific company, the better, because then they have more control over other people if somebody tries to squeal, right? But that's why things come back differently than they're sent out, because it's like, it would be one thing to take this person's job from them, but it would be another thing to afflict them with something that they can't get rid of, right? Something that they cannot hide from themselves. Which comes, even physical ailments like physical diseases will bring you to this thing called remuneration, which a lot of them are in right now. So remuneration, because I had to Google, me, I like to look up, I love a thesaurus. But remuneration is basically what happens is they keep replaying. So right now they're replaying these moments when they were either what I got was a download the other day, is that they had, like, these group texts and all this information because they're sending this out amongst each other. They also have some type of Excel spreadsheet that they have where they can all go and get into the Excel spreadsheet, right? They can all access it, and they keep a list there of their names and where they work. Like, not that, well, they know their names, but like where the person is working in their specific title at the company that they work at. And that's so that they can easily access who they need to. Like, oh, okay, my target is over at such and such company. We have a such and such that works there over in this area. And that's how they connect. Somehow that got leaked is what I'm understanding. That was a download. And that's also why I take the notes, guys, is because it's hard for me to remember all of these things. There's so much information that comes. And again, I don't always feel like getting on camera to tell you guys all this stuff. I know that a lot of it is for me to share, and so that's why I do my best to try to get these notes and get these readings out for you. There's been a lot of sacral and throat chakras being attacked on the collective, and so those are going to be attacked for these individuals as well. So their stability is the first thing. Yeah, okay. Actually, it was, okay, no, it's not the sacral. What's the first chakra? Come on, guys. Tell me down here in the comments. What is the first chakra? The root chakra. That's the stability chakra. That's the one that includes birth, survival, safety, and stability. Okay, that's wow, because I did this whole, so I've been, like, creating all of these, like, posts, like social media posts, so that people can know more about their chakras. And the one that I started with was root chakra. And I started to, like, create it on Canva the other day so that I can post on my Instagram, right? But the thing about it is, like, there's so much information on what these chakras are in charge of and what they do, right? That's why grounding is important, because that root chakra is what grounds us, right? It helps us create that stability. It's basically all the things that we need for rest, for the rest of our lives to unfold for us. So the sacral chakra is in charge of our life unfolding for us. It's also why people prey on the sacral chakra energy. That got me to looking up the organs, because that's not something people typically tell you about the sacral chakras. Like, what organs is it connected to? So now I'm trying to focus on connecting those things. So there's so much information, guys, that has to be put together in a really more comprehensive format for people to understand how to do the spiritual work, because everybody talks about, oh yeah, it's a lot of work. What is the work? That's what people need to understand. So the organs that this affects are the spine, the kidneys, the bladder, and the large intestine. And then that large intestine part, it got me to thinking, like, that's why the poop is so important. Because again, I firmly believe, you can believe what you want. You don't believe in poop, you do believe in poop, whatever you need to believe. But I'm a firm believer that poop is important. How your poop is conducive to how you are spiritually, what's happening with you spiritually. I know that when I was under heavy spiritual attack, I would often have symptoms that were similar to IBS. That's what a lot of these individuals are going to be going through as well now. So it's like they're just basically taking on all of the things that we took on, because that's a part of the walk. They want our destiny, so now they're having to walk the walk that we walk to achieve it. And rightfully so. Like, if they want something that looks similar, because along the road, as long as they continue to do what God is asking them to do, or divine, whoever, the universe, whatever, however they want to see it, or they are asking themselves to do at this point, like, they have to walk the walk. He's like, oh, you want this? Okay. But I feel like that's a lot of the misnomer, the misunderstanding, the misconception, the illusion for a lot of people, is that they were under some false reality, this illusion that you didn't work hard to get this. Like, you were, I don't know, or like you shouldn't get it. But it's like, now that they're starting, even the beginning phases is what I'm understanding of what you endured, it's just not good for them. It wasn't good for you either, but you still continue to do the right thing. So hopefully they can learn that too. But anyway, I noticed that back then when I was experiencing a lot of spiritual attacks, I had IBS type symptoms. Look it up. It's just irritable bowels, meaning like one day you got diarrhea, the next day you're constipated. Doesn't matter what you eat. That was also a part of the downloads. Like, some people are going to be affected because they're so sick to their stomachs with themselves that they cannot eat. You've ever been in that, like, where something was stressing you out so much that you just literally could not even, you don't have an appetite. That's the energy that they're in right now. Their sense of belonging, like their sense of shelter, they're starting to sit in where they really are. Like, it's a slow sit. As you see me sinking back in my chair, that's the kind of energy that they have right now. Like, it's a slow sit. It's a slow sinking back into reality right now for them, where it's like, oh, wait a minute. I've been spending, to kind of keep up this front, and I didn't put away anything. And now everything that we were counting on is pretty much changed, and there's nothing you can do about it. We've been there, right? Now the signs of a blockage of the root chakra affects people's fight or flight. So that's what these communities are in. They are being affected by the magic that was sent out by the people that they were following, whoever coached them, whoever's leading these cults or these groups, whoever's idea it was. Basically, those individuals have already went. Whomever's in charge have already went. I'm not laughing, but I am. But they've already went to their own workers and decided amongst, the higher bodies of these groups that they were going to go ahead and allow these communities to take on the effects of this. Like, we see it happening in other countries. Like, you can look at Nigeria and see the effects of all the scamming that they do, right? From that country, right? All the black magic that comes from there, right? Same thing is happening in regular cities and states. I was looking up, and because I'm such a Google everything girl, I was looking up the word mass hysteria, because that came up, and I was like, well, I don't even really understand what that means, and I need to understand, like, and then a lot of times I research things, because I'm like, could this even be real? Is it even fathomable? Like, I don't want people to blow it off as like when they watch a movie. Like, and that's the other thing. Like, all of a sudden, this scene from The Witches of Eastwick came into my head, and I was like, what does this have to do with anything? 1444 on the clock. And I look it up, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And it just spoke so much too about like everything But I think I'm gonna just watch the movie again today or this weekend and just like take a time to like really dive into like everything that I was seeing, because when I watched this movie when I was younger, because you know, I'm not an 80s baby, just so you know, because I've anyway, we'll get into that conversation later. But I'm a 70s baby. But so I was looking up mass hysteria so I could understand it, and it says mass psychogenic illness, and I was like, what? Because I often preach and you know press upon the fact that like these spiritual oh gosh, I need to slow down. There's so much information and there's so much that I'd like to express to people so they can understand what we're battling against right now, because I honestly feel like it's a demonic oppression. So we see people that are experiencing mass hysteria every day, right? Homeless people typically, right? But you ever wonder how they got there? A lot of people say it's drugs, which it is too, because it messes up the chemical imbalance, which is also a problem for these groups, because a lot of people were using drugs. Like there's a whole reading that I'm doing called, you know, cocaine is a hell of a drug. You know, I'm gonna put that out. That was the energy all like last week from like maybe Wednesday on. It was like cocaine is a hell of a drug, because there are people that are just not using drugs. Well, they're using drugs and using spell work, and then the other issue is that a lot of these religious organizations or cults or whatever, they're built to mimic something that's doing good, but they don't have all of the edification, and the edification that's needed is not getting to the other people that are coming into the groups that people just, you know, bring in because they're, you know, good at being bad. I don't know. And that's not what this was supposed to be used for, but we see people do it every day, and that's what causes the imbalance. People want the world to stay one way. I don't know. Anyway, but I looked up mass hysteria so I could understand, and it actually has happened before. There have been several instances of mass hysteria that has taken place. Um, I think there were like 7 or something like that. And so there's going to be an episode of mass hysteria, and I can tell you like there are always precursors. So again, the note that I found was from 2018. Those were my precursors. Those were my notes to myself. Like, hey, my higher self was begging me to see what I was about to encounter and to go deep diving into things that I didn't know, you know. But I didn't know that either. But people, these communities often don't see it. Like things will happen and people will be like, what the hell happened that day? And they don't understand it. Like, for instance, I was in California, and I remembered that when I lived in Arizona, the big thing amongst the, you know, business people in Arizona was the open, the waste management open. And it's funny because now I think of it as like it's a literal waste management open, in my opinion, at this point, moving forward for the rest of my life. Just like I'll never go to Georgia. Thank you very much. Anywho, like that'll be a big and plea to get me there. Anyway, so what happened in Arizona was at this waste management open. And if you don't know what the waste management open is, it's just like the US Open, but it's like smaller scale because it's just in Arizona. So there's all these people from business, you know, places and different companies that, you know, go, and you know, it's just a big event. It's like the US Open, but it's in Arizona. So they had this, and then everybody starts getting like belligerently drunk. They are fighting, they are falling. It looked like mass hysteria, if you ask me. And that's what I don't think a lot of these people realize, is that they're actually seeing these precursors, but they're not noticing it. They're brushing it off as like, oh, a bunch of us just all went and got drunk. Like, okay, so nobody was paying attention to the fact that everybody was there for business. And then you guys are all getting like pissy, sloppy drunk, rolling down, falling down all over the place. And like there's no limit, there's no cap. Like it was very odd. You can Google that if you want to and look it up. The Phoenix Waste Management Open last year. It was a waste management open. Okay, I don't even know if they ended up playing golf that day or like it was something. But so I see precursors in different places. You know, I see different signs too. But you know, I'm an intuitive. I be, you know, paying attention to everything. So, but that's also a part of it too, is that a demonic attachment to me can create, a demonic attachment can create a dysfunction within a person. Like it can create clinical psychological issues, if you will. Spell work can create that too, because it's a lot of that thought projection and stuff like that, and that's how I believe a lot of people end up where they are. Let me get into this other set of notes here. Because I actually had to go in. So that's where they're being most affected at, is definitely in that root chakra right now. They need to start that process of making really good choices. And then I also started to look and evaluate too the process of this STD that we keep talking about, which is, we were thinking it was a sexually transmitted demon. I have understood it to be a spiritually transmitted demon, because if you think about it, when you're around people, they can influence your behavior, right? Clearly, Phoenix Waste Management Open, that they influenced their own behavior amongst themselves, right? And probably gave each one of themselves passes after the fact, right? But that's what I think is taken place. It's like these spiritually transmitted demons that have affected these individuals, and they thought they were safe just because they were not in a physical relationship with people. But it's like, no, you made contracts with people based on your interactions with them, and you know, the fact that you come into contact with someone, that's a spiritual contract, right? How you handle it, you know, if you get mad at the barista and knock the cup over and all the, you know, drink spills out, you ruin that contract, right? We get it, they didn't put in your pumps of whatever, but it's how you handle the situations, right? But anyway, so it's inherited trauma. So spiritually transmitted demons basically have built up a foundation within these communities, right? Because now these people have all these things that they're feeling guilty about, that they're hiding, that they, you know, are concerned about, like all of these different things that are plaguing them at this point. Now, a lot of the problem, oh gosh, there's so much information. This is the trouble. Now, some of them may be sending spell work at this point in time to shorten your dating period, which it will do. That magic will be effective in the fact that your dating period will shorten. You and your person will know each other right away. You will not hesitate with being free to express your feelings. That's also part of your freedom, is you will be free, and so will your person, to be able to express their feelings of love, companionship, and everything else. These people are also experiencing some backfires of confusion spells. So just like forgetting things, feeling very disorganized. It's a lot of the old spell work returning to them. They can't remember what they sent even. A lot of them are having headaches, diarrhea, bubble guts, anxiety, opportunities, moments slipping through their fingers, making really poor decisions. I'm getting like some people even arguing with work people, like arguing with people on the job. That was another part of it too, is like how the domino effect is working with respect to them getting caught up. So the domino effect with respect to them getting caught up. Okay, so I wrote a scenario that's like, okay, let's say the instance is, this is somebody that you work with, and they've been stealing your food out of the fridge, right? And trashing it. They're not eating it because they don't want to end up with, you know, sick or something because you're trying to catch them. So let's say that this is somebody that works with you, and you have a friend and you're telling them like, oh yeah, somebody's stealing my lunch out of the fridge, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, okay. And eventually you finally get fed up and you tell management. So management, after getting this complaint for some time from you, is like, okay, we'll put up a note and saying, don't, you know, touch other people's lunches, blah, 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 blah. And we'll send out a, you know, an email to everybody. So they do this, right? Now this person, instead of stealing your lunch, is taking your lunch and putting it in the freezer. Okay. They've become very crafty. So now if you complain, you look like a buffoon because your food is literally in there, but it's in the freezer. And so you just would look stupid if you said anything. So you go and you tell your person that you are cool with at the job about what's going on, right? Thinking you're confiding in a friend. This friend then goes and tells everybody else around the office, yeah, this person was crazy, talking about somebody was stealing their lunch the whole time. They was probably putting it in the freezer and getting mad because they kept blah, 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 blah. Nobody taking into account, like, why would you complain if you are catching yourself in your own, like, idiocy, right? But nonetheless, what they didn't know is that there was someone higher up that when they found out about this, they said, oh, okay, yeah, send out the email, put the note on the fridge and in the kitchen by the toaster, whatever, and also put a camera up. They didn't know about the camera. So when this person started putting stuff in the freezer, You're telling your friend is telling other people in the office. This gets to one of the supervisors. This supervisor's like, look, somebody's having trouble with their stuff. You know, we should go and pull the tape. They pull the tape. They find the person that was doing this to you. Now, not only is this person that has been taking this stuff looking like a fool, now the other person that was supposedly your friend that's talking about you is looking like a fool. And they're like, you thought this person was crazy the whole time. It was so-and-so. And so it's like you are getting there's something happening. There's a shift in things. People are starting to take accountability and responsibility. And that's also part of my notes too. It's like people are trying to remove the responsibility to other people. Okay. And they're going to be effective with these communities. These community members don't feel like they are responsible for anything. They don't feel like, and some of them do, but nobody is actually taking the opportunity to speak up. Now, there may be a few, is what I'm understanding. Like some people are going to start to like get some understanding. It's kind of like the whole thing, like somebody gets arrested or somebody gets in trouble or they see something happening around them and they're like, oh no. And they're like, I need to do this, that, and the other because I don't want to get caught up in this. So that's what's happening. Maybe even somebody's getting confronted by the police. They're getting called in by the police and they're like, you need to let us know what you know. And somebody is being told, like, you know, you need to save yourself is what I'm hearing. I don't have to pull out the cards to know anything. But anyway, so that domino effect of like, oh, it was one person. You have one enemy that you knew that was taking your lunch, right? You didn't know that your friend was your enemy. So now, because of whatever this one enemy was doing, it's now getting the other enemy caught up when you get cleared. So that's what's happening. Let's see. And so as a result, the management, let's just put it that way. Let's talk about this hypothetical office situation. The management is now looking at everybody. So instead of going straight towards everybody with everything that they knew and saying, oh yeah, we put the camera, blah, 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 they're now kind of scrutinizing. They're thinking about, okay, well, the people who were gossiped to by your friend who's basically said you were crazy because your lunch was being stolen, that person now, they're talking amongst themselves, the people that this person used to gossip to, they're talking amongst themselves about this person and figuring out like, oh, this person is where this gossip and this rumor came from and blah, 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 blah. So now the office members are starting to take note of like where the drama is coming from too. Management has caught on and considering the morale of the company and like now that everybody knows that they have liars, cheaters, and et cetera on these teams. Now understand these are cults. These are institutions that actually, I did my research on magic too. They're not supposed to be doing what they're doing. You are totally fine and appropriate to manifest for yourself, but not against someone else's free will. And then you can't do it on people who are innocent. You just cannot do that to innocent people. Like there's no getting around it. I've looked and I've done my research thoroughly. Okay. That's also what they are not understanding too, is why somebody has to pay, you know what I mean? And it's not going to be the collective, clearly. That time is already dead and gone, you know. But so now they're doing a deep dive into everybody that's on the floor. Let's say it's a call center job. Everybody that's on the floor, they're doing a deep dive into them because now they're concerned about, and people can tell whose fault it is, right? Because they know, they know who, I don't know if they know who was like stealing the lunch, who was causing the problem, like who is actually the lunch thief. They know that somebody was stealing your lunch, so they know part of the details. They don't know which person is fully responsible yet because it's like the management has decided not to do any, like they put everything on a pause to kind of evaluate everyone else. And so that's what maybe these community members don't see, is like everything has been like put to a halt or stopped or paused or something like that, maybe in these groups. But anyway, so some people are deciding to speak before words gets out so that they can gain some merit in situations. Some people are speaking out because they know their noses are not clean. Like they know, but it's kind of like once this person is put on leave, then in 3 to 7 business days, everybody's fully aware. It's kind of like that energy. Like by next week this time, everybody will start to see the changes in the office, because they've seen everything that they need to see, you know. Um, the person who was stealing the lunch got caught in the second move because they couldn't resist. So that's kind of conducive to what they're doing with the spell work. It's like they couldn't resist. That's why they're caught up now. That's why it's like they thought that they were just continuing to get away with it. Spirit was just actually like, are you really going to do this? Are you really going to continue to do this? And then these community members that were on board to continue to like, oh, get up at this specific time and send this energy or say these chants over and over again in your mirror at this time between this hour and this hour. Like, this is literal how they roll, you guys. I'm just telling you. Anyway, yeah, they couldn't resist. That's what I wrote here. They got caught in that second move because they couldn't resist. I couldn't resist trying to thwart you, trying to stop you, trying to, you know, do whatever they were trying to do, because they couldn't stop themselves, you know. Isn't that how most people get caught up? Like, they don't stop while they're ahead. They don't quit while they're ahead, so they can't get out. Let's see. Yeah, complete waiting, evaluating other people. So it looks like, oh, maybe there's even some spiritual auditing going on within these cults and covens and everything. The body of members statewide in each state where a divine being is living or has been seen or reported. Oh, wow. So the higher ups in different, the communities are being spiritually audited or have been. Yeah, in anywhere that divine beings have been known to live, or where they were reported to have been. Anybody who basically just listened to the gossip and drama but didn't engage in spreading it and didn't, you know, decide to judge, and they just went on with their lives, are being maneuvered into questioning right now, or to stand to be witnesses in order to have the potential to exclude them from their karma from this. But they are still having to experience their own dark night of the soul and past life regression to understand where they will reside in the New World Order. Okay. Let's see. What's changed? Okay, so some of the turnarounds are that women are being seen, acknowledged, and appreciated for their virtue. That was one of the other things that I don't think people realize too. Is like, if you look at successful people, they always want to paint a picture of having a successful relationship in business, right? Home and family life, right? But that's what everybody's finding out, is like, these successful people aren't really successful, they're evil. These married people aren't really happy, they're miserable. You know what I mean? And so that's what why the push has been so hard against your business endeavors or your marital relationship, or, you know, whatever it is because that is the goal. They have to, you know, be able to facade and put the wrong type of people into what is it? Powers of places of position, right? Places of power, positions of power, so that they can basically maneuver and run everybody else. That's just how it works, which is also another reason, like, you can totally put me on record for this, but I will not be voting for Kamala. Like, I do not want to do anything that's going to put us stuck in this Simpsons syndrome, because if you look at the Simpsons, that was a part of it. So I feel like anytime we're able to stop something that happens in The Simpsons, we're doing great. We've ascended. That's just my personal opinion. But I just don't see her as being a really great candidate for presidency. She doesn't even know what race she is. She's clear. You know what I mean? Like, at least we know Trump is orange. I don't know. I'm just going to go there. I don't feel like she has a backbone. I don't feel like I don't feel her being a strong candidate. And I also don't like a lot of her campaign things. I'm sorry this is turning into political things, because I don't really like to get political, but like one of her campaigns that comes on and my daughter happened to say, and I was like, oh gosh, we gotta have a talk now. When we fight, we win. Okay, number one, we don't want everything to be about fighting, right? Because that's been the problem. But anyway. Okay, so unstable economies. Oh, okay, so then this is how some of the mental illnesses are transferring in families, is what I'm understanding this download to be. So outside of just the fact that people are going to be seeing and acknowledging and appreciating women for their virtue, right? Families where either the men were succumbed to mental illness or the women are. Now it's being switched because of the generational curses being healed. Like, as a result of that, now, if the men in your family were afflicted with schizophrenia and bipolar, now it's switched to the opposite sex, but because you are healed, it does not affect. Does that make sense? I hope it does. If not, message me or something. I don't know. But now what's happening is in those families, they'll, I don't know. Let's just skip on to satanic ritual abuse because that's what I have notes on. Let's see. So satanic ritual abuse is just, gosh, it's, I'm going to Google so I can give you just like a brief definition of it, because that's what's happening in these groups. Satanic ritual abuse. And again, sometimes the only reason why I have a word or something like that and I have to look it up is because in that moment I was doing laundry and I wanted my stuff to not be wrinkled. And so I took it out the dryer and I folded it. And I didn't have time to write down your notes or get on live and tell you guys about this download on satanic ritual abuse. So basically, so you should Google that. It's basically what I believe has happened is a lot of individuals, because of the environment that they grew up in, and I hate to sound like very statistical, but it is, and that also had something to do with my notes too, is it's like, because you don't get census information until the year after, right? You don't get census information and results until the year after. So a lot of people's information is even delayed with results and information based on like what's happening in these groups, and recognizing satanic ritual abuse. What I have come to find is that a lot of these younger individuals have found out about it earlier on. And so I've also researched and found out like the energy of the state that you live in, that energy resides. It doesn't go anywhere. You know, you have to use it correctly. That's what it's there for. Oh, gosh. Okay. A part of that satanic ritual abuse too was like, my downloads are like, some of these men are going to have to commit the women that they love. Like, they're going to have to get a power of attorney or make them a ward of the state in some of these communities. These husbands are going to just like leave their wives or put them into these power attorneys or wards of states because they're having these fits and trances and visions. Again, that movie, The Witches of Eastwick, is pressing so heavily upon me because these people were... So my understanding of how a demonic attachment even can attach to you is if you are succumbing to any sins. You know, some people think that, you know, they're holier than thou, you know, but they're guilty of being judgmental. And, you know, they will beat somebody over the head with their beliefs. That is not appropriate. And so that's where people open themselves up, their hatred. Oh, that was the other part too. Okay, because I've been hearing the word hate thrown around a lot lately. And I want to examine that because my grandmother told me, I had just divorced my husband and I was telling something about something else, like, oh, I hate him. And I was talking about my ex-husband. I was like, oh, I hate him. My grandmother was like, be careful how you use that word. I wouldn't say that if I was you. And I was like, why? And I was like, I literally hate him. And she goes, be careful, because what happens when you say that is that you give the other person that you're saying you hate all of the free will and power over your life in that instance, because your feelings towards them and for them overpower your own mental cognizance for your own self in that instance. Think about it. If you hate somebody, like some people are like, I hate my baby daddy. That baby daddy can show up and turn that person's whole mood around, right? Come in and that person be angry and upset and yelling and arguing and fussing, but they were just pleasant beforehand, right? So there's a lot of ways that you can be open to being used by a demonic entity. Again, it's a spiritually transmitted disease, not sexually, spiritually transmitted. It transfers from energy to energy, body to body. Okay. If you are guilty of being one of those people that, you know, yells and screams and, you know, likes to argue and causes drama and stuff like that, you could be susceptible to a lot of other demons, you know, if they found, you know, the use for you, is what I'm saying. A lot of these communities, went ahead and wrote their own, selves over. Come on. We hear about it all the time in the industry. People who wrote their lives over, who know that who honestly, wholeheartedly will tell you. Sukahana, right? She will tell you her to your face. If you got tattoos or not, she will tell you that, she sold her soul to the devil. So you have to consider that these are real things. These things are occurring. So the unstable economy began back in 2020. And if you were one of those individuals who started to see things open up for you and you were able to excel in that year, you were probably one of the most targeted individuals on the planet. I'm just going to be honest with you. If during that time of an unstable economy where everybody understands and believes that this is the time when millionaires and billionaires are born. So in 2020, if you were excelling, if you were doing amazing, I don't care what it looks like today, there is a resurgence, there is a resurrection, okay, of our freedom to be able to do what we want and enjoy it. So you also have to consider, too, there are things that occurred on social media. There was a viral epidemic, right? Oh, my video went viral. Oh, this went viral. Is that really how you want to look at yourself? If you start to consider the word viral and what it means and how it relates, people have to actually consider that words are spells. How you're using your words are huge. They're extremely important. If you look up the word viral, I would not want to say anything that I had is viral, because it means quickly and widely spread or popularized, but oftentimes without any basis or lasting effects, etc., etc. So it's basically not something that I would encourage, but be cautious of that. Yeah, there's a lot to break down. Sometimes I don't want to give these messages. I be writing down what they tell me in my downloads, but some of these messages are super heavy, guys. I don't want to talk about, the fact that people may be so afflicted at this point in time, or may become so afflicted at some point to start behaving like animals. We've seen these epidemics happen over the course of time. My note here just says Middle Ages, biting and cat meowing. Again, some people are literally going to have to commit their family members. It's the same spellwork that was being used on the collective is now backfiring on the members of their own group. And them trying to evade it is basically just throwing and sloshing the karmic debt around throughout the community. They cannot evade their karma. Yeah, because they wrote over all of the contracts for the community to take the fall and to get away with whatever it is that they have these communities take part in. There's a false person who is a false twin or something like that. This person just happened to be mentally unstable, it says. It says the only reason that the connection may have seemed valuable or realistic is because they knew how to astral travel and used that to connect with people. So basically, if you know how to astral travel, then you'll know what I mean. But that was basically how they would solidify connections between themselves and other people and be able to become a false person in someone's narrative or life, is because they could astral travel. So when you are connected with on such a deep level, because not everybody knows how to do it, it makes people have an affinity towards you, right? Because you're experiencing something that you don't experience with other people on other vibrations and other levels. But that's just, the danger of astral travel too, if you don't really know what you're doing too. But if they can throw their karmic debt onto this community, it'll absolve them, and they get to keep the money, is what it says. Women in each community, there are some women in each community playing both sides. So there are women in each communities. I don't know, I get the vision of somebody is a stripper, walking up to the club for their their shift or whatever. But there are some women in the community playing both sides. That's what I got. There are some women in the community who are aware of what these individuals who are basically going to kind of run off and disappear and throw this karmic debt on the community. And then there are they're also playing the side of, oh, I'm in it with the community, and there's a lot of collusion going on right now. If I were you, I would stay away from astral traveling for a while. I would probably clear out my energy and not do any astral traveling for like a month. Yeah, I would definitely do that. Anyway. Forgiveness keeps coming up in front of my face too. Like, some people are immature, and they really need to work on their inner child. They're selfish, manipulative, jealous, and envious, and they are basically receiving their karma. But yeah, that's basically where these community members are at. They're at this point of where it's like, you ever have that moment before where you're like, you know, you have other stuff that you're about to do or you need to do, or there's like a future basically, right, that you have planned. You plan to pay your, you know, your car note and your bills and your this and, you know, your mortgage, etc., your rent, and, you know, all your memberships and your spa treatments and blah 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 blah. You plan to do all of that, right? But your money is gone. There's that energy there where it's like somebody was just holding up a facade for so long, and now they either have to disappear or they have to kind of put someone else in their karmic position, which ends up being this community. And of course, they've already got them in this position. So the only way for these karmic communities to actually have any resolve and not be succumbed to whatever is taking place is for them to acknowledge the truth. But again, it's so hard for non-truthful people, or people who like to turn an eye, or, you know, turn a blind eye to things, or, you know, it's difficult for those people. But that's what we are always talking about when we say the work is hard. It's not easy making the right choices sometimes, because it means that you have to put aside what your own personal feelings are, sometimes even what it means for your own stability in order to get to a place of stability. What I mean by that is, I don't know if you know or not, but I was a realtor for a really long time. And in several instances, one in particular where a client went out and purchased a car before close of escrow, and they weren't going to get the house. They needed to come up with like several $1,000s to show that this person could pay this like really incredibly insane car note for a car that wasn't worth it, of course. And they didn't have the money. So the only way that they could get the keys to their house, which their kids, they had 3 children, were depending on them getting, and they were all excited about. And it was, you know, of course it's an exciting thing to get a new house. I would have to give up my commission, which wasn't required. Nobody asked me to, but I did, which ultimately mean I didn't get paid for the work that I'd done. So everything that I was doing, I was giving it away for somebody else to be happy. And I think that that's a huge lesson too. It's like, you don't want to keep being in positions where you're gaining merit with the wrong individuals. I wasn't gaining merit anywhere in that instance, except with in the heavens, you know, with what I was doing, because there is no amount of bottles of wine that a client could give you, or fruit baskets after their closing, or flowers, that will amount to what you actually did morally, business-wise, professionally, just as a person, a human to human on the planet, and so on and so forth. Like, think the compassion that I had for the fact that I thought about our kids. You know, they'd probably been telling, like, we got a new house with a pool and blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, my kids would end up suffering. You know, that's money coming out of my household. But that's also the lessons that these people need to learn, which is why they're being stripped in the way that they are. They have to learn these lessons of understanding that, like, money isn't everything, you know. But for the collective, that's your understanding and acceptance and appreciation of just life in general. You know, we are all so grateful to be here right now, especially in these moments, as we're ascending. But that's why the collective is moving forward to having everything. It's like, because they're not going to be the type that are just out there to do things to show other people. They're going to be out there to do things because it fulfills them, which in turn they'll be able to continue to give to others, which is basically the scripture that I came upon, and I think it's relevant. So hope this has been insightful in some way, shape, or form. I'll catch you on the next one. Later.